Easy. And welcome to part one of this video where I'm going to talk about the left and the despicable new campaign tactics. Now before I do that, I just want to talk for a second about my first video where the people who have been commenting have said some negative things about what I said in that video. When I said that we need to come together with the left, we need to talk to them, we need to be friendly with them. Well, when I made that video, I was in an extremely dark mood because I just had my faith in humanity shaken after watching Panodrama live. And I'd seen the tactics of the BBC, and I'd had my faith in humanity shaken again for a second time in my life that day. When, you know, that feeling you get when you think that there are certain people who just would never do certain things. Well, that's what happened that day. I had my faith in humanity shaken again. The first time in my life when that happened to me, just to give you an example, was in 1997 when I was 23 years old. In the January of that year, I'd just bought a new car. It was the nicest car I'd ever owned. And in the February of that year, I parked up in a lay-by just outside the village of Hathersage in Derbyshire. And I was minding my own business, eating a sandwich in the car, when a man came up behind the car, and then he went round to the side of the car, and I watched him in my wing mirror. I watched him take a bunch of keys out of his pocket and put a 3-foot scratch down the side of the car while I was sat in it. The best bit about that story is that man was 79 years old. You see what I mean? There are just things that you just would assume would never happen. And ever since that day, I've always believed that nothing is off limits, that people can do anything. So now I want to talk about the left. The new tactics that they are using to campaign. Now, for quite a long time, we've seen that the left have taken a campaign method of what I call a destructive method. That's where, rather than promote your own merits, is where you try to destroy the other side. Now, there is nothing particularly wrong with that, because I guess it's just part of what you need to do to win. It's part of doing whatever is necessary to win. But it's a little bit nasty. But these tactics are no longer working for them anymore. For a long time that they've called people like me racist, bigot, far right, neo-Nazi. Every time that you say something that's not politically correct, it's basically like them saying, get back in your box, you bigot. Well, it's no longer working anymore. So this is why they are now turning more nasty, because all across the world at the minute, the left are losing. And this is why they're doing what they're doing. They're becoming more extreme. They're becoming more violent. We're seeing acts of physical violence here from them. And all I can say is it must mean that people like me are doing something right. But these are the new tactics that they are employing. Number one, select your target. Number two, go back through the last 10 years worth of their social media posts. Number three, pick out anything that you can find in those social media posts in order to discredit them and to smear them. It could be something that was 10 years old maybe. That's not off limits to them anymore. Number four, sit back and wait for the outrage mob to act as judge, jury and executioner. Forgive me, I've just got some notes beneath the camera that I'm reading as I go along. And I want to give a few examples of that particular tactic. First of all, I want to talk about Toby Young. Now, Toby Young was appointed as the director of the New Schools Network a few years ago. Basically means that he's in charge of education and universities and schools. But of course, Toby Young is a white conservative man. And that is never going to be acceptable for the left, is it? In charge of schools, universities, How dare he? That is a position that only the far left is allowed to take on. How dare that man? And what they did is they started clearly with intent going back through his social media posts, through his Twitter account, and they found something there that he said that they decided, I've not seen the exact post, but they decided was homophobic. And they rubbed their hands in glee and they went, we've got him. And they went on then to discredit him. They flagged up these posts and they went on to show the world how this man is not fit for the job. And of course, Toby Young did what everybody should do at the beginning, and he decided, well, I'm qualified for this job. He was qualified for that job. And what happened then is that the usual thing happened, that the pressure got piled on and he was forced to quit. He wasn't going to quit originally. He rode it out, but the pressure got louder and louder. And one of the people behind this pressure group was Angela Rayner, who is the shadow education secretary. And I've seen that woman a couple of times on on Question Time, and she is a bully. To be quite honest with you, she is a bully. She's perfectly cute. She's perfectly suited for Jeremy Corbyn's shadow cabinet. But Toby Young did the one thing that you should never do, is he bowed to the pressure and he quit. He let them win, basically. And that brings me now to case number 2, which is Carl Benjamin, Sargon of Akkad, who is now running for office as an MEP for UKIP. Now, Carl Benjamin is a very intelligent man. I've watched some of his YouTube videos, and he really has a way about him, a really intellectual guy. I've got to think that he's very intelligent. And he's a free speech specialist. And he knows what he can say and what he can't say. And he made a joke some years ago about the one and only Jess Phillips. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Jess Phillips, she is a Labour MP and she is a raging feminist. And when she was in a meeting some years ago where the other MPs, they were talking about what can be done about male suicides. The suicide rate amongst men is much higher than that of women. And she actually laughed at somebody in that meeting, almost like male suicide is funny, because she clearly hates men. Now, why would Jess Phillips hate men? I mean, she's got to have men falling at her feet. They've got to be falling over each other to sleep with her. Right? Sorry, I couldn't resist that one. But no, that's why Jess Phillips hates men, because she probably gets zero action. But that just goes to show how nasty they can get. Now, what Jess Phillips has done is that she has gone through Carl Benjamin's past social media posts, and she has picked out this thing that he said, that he wouldn't even rape her. Now, let's just look closely at what he said. He wouldn't rape her. Neither would I, god damn it. But for some reason he's been targeted because he's a white conservative man. He's a member of UKIP who is campaigning for UKIP, and he's bloody good. And this is why they've decided we have got to take him down, we've got to stop him. And rather than counter Carl Benjamin's brilliant ways, they can't do it, they cannot beat him, so they have to discredit him. And these are what the left, this is what the left are now doing. Now, that's just a couple of cases of what has happened in Britain. In part 2 of this video, I'm going to talk about what's happened in America. And what's happened in Britain is nothing compared to what's happened in America and to a lesser extent Canada. So please stay tuned for part 2 of this video. And until then, easy.